What do you think the campaign has learned from 2008? What are you doing maybe differently than 2008 that has obviously led to success here in South Carolina?
Well, goodness, sir, it's February 26th. The election's actually tomorrow, so I know some people have early voted, but we're still working hard for every vote. It's why I was in Charleston earlier today, why I've been so excited to be across Columbia today. I've lost track on what number interview you are. We're doing everything we can to talk about what's at stake in this election and to encourage people to come out and vote tomorrow and hopefully to vote for my mom. So I think that's probably a better question to ask me after tomorrow. But certainly from a personal perspective, the big difference for me in this campaign versus 2008 is that I'm now a mom. So that means a couple things. One, it means my travel these days is sort of like a yo-yo because I go back to New York a lot to see my daughter, Charlotte, and I feel even more passionately about my mom's campaign this time around because I'm a mom. So for me, that's the biggest difference, and I hope that we're successful tomorrow, but we'll have to have that conversation after tomorrow, God willing.
Fair enough. Obviously, you're here today, your father's here today, your mother's here today. We have not seen Senator Sanders here as much. Considering how far ahead you are, was there any consideration about maybe going to some of the states for them that have March elections, considering also that Super Tuesday is coming up so quickly?
Well, certainly we've been traveling all over the country, all of us, but South Carolina is a hugely important state. The election is tomorrow. I couldn't imagine where else we would be except for here today, and I'm grateful. I think I've had 4 public events, a lot of OTRs, a lot of interviews, and this is exactly what I want to be doing today, the day before the South Carolina election.
We're coming off of a week where South Carolina chose Donald Trump as its favorite as a Republican prospect. What do you think has been behind the popularity of Donald Trump, and why? Obviously, he may be the nominee that may face your mother come November.
Well, you'll have to ask a supporter of Donald Trump why they're supporting Mr. Trump. I mean, certainly from my perspective, I find the rhetoric that has so often characterized Republican debates. Admittedly, I missed the one last night because I was on the flight down to Charleston from New York, where rallies or speeches really troubling. The racism, the sexism, the Islamophobia, the homophobia, the anti-immigrant rhetoric. And so I think that's a big distinction between the Republican side and the Democratic side, where we're having debates about how to achieve universal health care coverage, how to achieve college affordability. And so I would hope that as more people across the country get engaged in this election, they'll think about kind of what issues are really most important to them, as well as kind of what are real American values, and they'll start paying more attention to the Democratic side. And then when they're looking for a real change maker, I hope they'll really look to support my mom.
If your mother is able to win by the margin it seems like she can in South Carolina, Senator Sanders is not leading in many polls coming up. Come March 15th, do you think it would be wise for him to drop out just so that the Democrats can start concentrating on November and possibly fighting Mr. Trump?
Oh, goodness, sir, truly. I mean, I know you're going to think I'm dodging this, but I just am a really superstitious person. So I am looking forward to the next election, which standing here on Friday, February 26th, is tomorrow. And really, tomorrow is also my birthday.
Yes.
So it's hard for me to forget the date of the South Carolina primary. And then, on Sunday, I'm going to wake up and be thinking about March 1st. And then on March 2nd, I'm going to wake up and be thinking about March 5th. So, I certainly hope that my mom does really well here tomorrow. We've worked really hard for every vote. I hope she continues to do well. But if you're interested post March 15th, that maybe we'll have a chance to talk again then.
Okay. And I know one of the issues has been college affordability. We're here obviously at a school. You just visited USC. What can we do realistically to make college more affordable for students and also help with the student debt?
So it's such an important question, really 2 questions. So when we think about debt that students already have from college, but also from graduate school is not often talked about, but it's a really important part of this equation too, and helps explain why more than 40 million Americans have more than $1 trillion of outstanding student loan debt. What my mom's been advocating for since when she was actually in the Senate more than a decade ago is enabling people who have debt today to renegotiate that debt in the same way that we can renegotiate the interest rates on our mortgages or our car payments, and then to index all of repayments to no more than 10% of someone's salary, and then after 20 years to have a total loan forgiveness. So if you've made your payments at 10% of your salary every year, 20 years later, the rest goes away. She doesn't think that the federal government should be making a profit on student loans, and she doesn't think that people should be making professional decisions based on servicing their student loan debt. And then going forward, she actually has a pretty different plan than Senator Sanders, in that Senator Sanders largely relies on states to come up with money to fund his free college promise. And I don't know what you think, but it's hard to imagine Governor Haley coming up with I think it's more than $8 billion that South Carolina would have to come up with on day one to fund that. So what my mom says is she believes everyone in a public university or private university should be able to graduate debt-free. And when looking at public university, she thinks students that come from working class, middle class families should be able to go tuition-free, but that wealthier families should pay into the system. It's also just a different view of equity. She thinks those that have done well in this country should help pay to create more opportunities for those from families who haven't done well yet. And then she doesn't have to rely on governors to come up with money they may not have, or they may not be interested in investing in public colleges. That's particularly important in places like South Carolina, where the governor and state legislature have actually been cutting back funds for public universities. So there are different views on how to get there, but certainly an important conversation that we're having on the Democratic side, and again, is a big difference from what's happening on the Republican side.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thanks very much.